And yeah, Nick has a comment that it's kind of similar to what's happening with GPUs, because like the MSRP for GPUs is just creeping slowly.
Slowly.
Not even that slowly, I guess, and not even really creeping. It's sprinting forward. People even mentioned on the last Verified Actual Gamer drop, they're like, "Wow, I mean, it's at MSRP, but it's like pretty expensive." And it's like, yeah, because the MSRP went up.
Well,
like,
something people might not realize is I've seen. I'm not going to name any names, so let's just say a GPU chipset maker. So this is either AMD or NVIDIA. But I have seen them announce an MSRP, and then I've heard from board partners through the grapevine that even though the board partners are still expected to hit that MSRP somehow magically, and even though the media never get any kind of update that the MSRP has changed, I've heard about those chipsets getting more expensive to the board partners. And then basically just these chipset manufacturers, or not even manufacturers, designers, because they're all manufactured by Samsung or TSMC or GlobalFoundries or whatever. These designers, be it AMD or NVIDIA, basically just sit there and let their partners take the flak, just act as a meat shield while they sit and extract more value out of their partners. And because they're all bound by NDAs that are not just NDAs, there's a lot more than the legal ramifications of leaking information from a partner like AMD or NVIDIA. Like they will cut your allocation. They're not obligated to sell you GPUs. They could sell them to somebody else. They will cut your allocation. They will destroy your business, and they can do it overnight. And they can be vindictive about it. Like, oh
the
man,
GPU industry is so weird.
It's super weird. What they really need is collective bargaining. Like if all the GPU board partners got together and were like, look, we are not going to accept 3% profit margins anymore. We are not going to hit your MSRP.
I don't know if it would matter.
I think it would. Well, okay, so it wouldn't matter because they would never all get together and do that.
Okay, for one, yeah. But for two, I genuinely think, especially NVIDIA, honestly, I could see AMD wanting to play ball more, but especially NVIDIA, I feel like would get so cheesed about that their immediate response would just be like, we're not working with board partners anymore. We're just going to make all our own GPUs. Get wrecked.
Yeah, it would take them a while to build up the capacity to do that. It's clear that that's been the direction that they've been moving for a number of years now.
Definitely thinking about it.
Making themselves less dependent on board partners. And it's kind of funny because you say you couldn't imagine AMD doing that, but that actually used to be AMD's model. Like AMD used to compete directly with their own board partners back in remember BBA cards?
I just wouldn't see AMD get as vindictive about it.
Well, that's because AMD doesn't have the option to get as vindictive.
That's
Nobody needs them as badly.
That's probably true.
Like, come on. I mean, I look, I'm not trying to throw any shade or anything like that. The truth of the matter is that NVIDIA's partners, whether it's through NVIDIA's actions or through their own actions, are a fair bit more dependent on NVIDIA, and it's a lot more lucrative to be engaged with NVIDIA on that GPU business than it is to be engaged with AMD. They just sell so many more cards. So even if NVIDIA is squeezing you and you're only making, 4 points on the board, let's say AMD could offer you 6 points. Because remember, AMD still has to have that street price competitive with NVIDIA, and they have their own costs, right? It costs to get the chips fabbed. They have to buy memory, right?
Yeah.
They have their own costs, right? So even if AMD could get you more margin, if NVIDIA boards are outselling AMD boards 4-1, which is about what it is.
Is that it? I thought it was even worse than that.
No, I think they're at about 80% market share for discrete GPU right now. Don't quote me on that because it does tend to kind of shift around.
Also, how are you measuring that? Are you just doing gamers? Are you doing like Steam survey?
That's really all you can go on.
Because right now it's honestly however much can be produced.
Yes, but NVIDIA books way more capacity than AMD because they sell way more GPUs than AMD. It's that simple.
Yeah. Speaking of wanting to sell way more things, you want to talk about the Facebook Live audio room with Intel execs?
Yeah, so that was really refreshing today. It's been a long time since I remember, man, hopefully I'm not going to get anybody in trouble, but I had one of my contacts at Intel, Agnes. I actually haven't talked to her in forever. The last time I talked to her, I was like kind of beating her up because I was like, look, you guys have a PR problem. because you guys are so determined to be professional that you've lost any semblance of humanity whatsoever.
Yep.
You guys are a nameless, faceless organization that nobody cares about because you try so hard to be a nameless, faceless organization that nobody cares about. And basically, I forget what I had wanted to do. Oh, I remember what this was around the time that they had that benchmarking scandal where they worked with the third party or something to produce benchmarks for them that were like clearly very misleading. And then they issued this total non-apology. And I was like, no, you guys need to get a human face out there. You need to actually apologize like you actually mean it. And you gotta stop being so stuffy, right? So I was giving her heck about it because I was like, you guys are impossible to work with right now because everyone just looks bad. You guys look bad. Now I look bad. And at the end of the day, and she was neither able to confirm nor deny this, but at the end of the day, as far as I could tell, it was gross incompetence, not any actual willful.
Well, they've been so
willfully
disconnected
misleading
for
behavior.
so long, and I know I've brought this up actually like probably double-digit amount of times on WAN Show. But there's that scenario where I talked about how they pulled out of conventions.
Yes,
because they're like, oh, we don't see the ROI in it. They've just been so disconnected from like people for so long. It's been ridiculous.
So that was one of the last conversations I actually had with Agnes. And I mean, she wasn't able to confirm or deny this because I know how it is. But my belief is that the reason they didn't ultimately issue an apology is because issuing an apology is the same as saying mea culpa. It's admitting you did something wrong. And admitting you did something wrong to your customers, well, that's human. That's how you engage with your customers. That's how you build a relationship. That's how you build trust, right?
Yeah.
Admitting you're wrong from a legal standpoint, not great. Now you're opening yourself up to lawsuits. So my belief is that what happened there was a case of gross, utter incompetence, not from the engineers. It must have been an exec level person. Again, she could not get any kind of confirmation. And then what I suspect is that the lawyers came in and said, whoa, we just need this to quietly go away without us actually saying we did anything wrong, because if we do that, all of a sudden we could be opening ourselves up to all kinds of legal action. That's what I believe happened. And it doesn't change that just makes you look like this personalityless,
super slimo,
like emotionless monster, right?
Yeah, a bunch of suits.
So, had a really refreshing conversation today. We did these, we've done 6 now. Actually, that was the last one. We did 6 of these Facebook Live audio rooms as a partnership with Facebook. And we did some really good ones. Luke and I did our favorite games. We did one with Wendell, Linux Then, Now, and the Future. Did a really great one with James and Brian the electrician, sort of talking about, should you let your kids use tech? What's our policies? And the one today was, is Moore's Law dead? And Intel actually managed to get me 2 VP level executives, and Agnes was there. That's why I brought her up, because she was there presumably to supervise, but she didn't step in. She didn't say anything. But I had 2 VP level execs, and basically they were like, yeah, we want to talk to you as humans. And then they did.
Cool.
And it was great because, I mean, I tweeted about this without actually, I've never met Pat Gelsinger, I've never met Pat. He's the new CEO of Intel as of about 6 months ago. All I knew was, as soon as I saw the appointment, I knew that he had a background as an engineer. And that made me really excited because Intel's previous CEO was an accounting background. And that sucks. That's not how you drive passion and a product focused culture. You need to have someone who actually understands what you are doing, not just who you sell it to, but what you make. And so I was really excited, and I tweeted, I was like, thank you. What does your competition who's killing it right now all have in common? NVIDIA, engineering background CEO. AMD, engineering background CEO. It's almost like there's a pattern. And I was extremely excited about it. And when I was talking to these guys today, one of the things I asked them was, tell me a story. Tell me a story that illustrates to you how the last 6 months have been a turning point for Intel and how people are more excited about what they're doing. And one of them came back to me and they were like, well, okay, here's something. I brought this proposal to Pat and my boss, and it was this like huge undertaking. Obviously it's all NDA'd at this
Can't
point.
say what it is.
Couldn't say exactly what it was, but it's this huge undertaking.
Sure.
And the reading between the lines, going to be really expensive. And I basically said, okay, and it's going to take us, here's what we're going to do. And he was listening rapturously. And I finished up, and he basically said, wow, I really like it. That sounds really exciting, but I want it 2 years earlier. And I'm like, thank
Sweet.
you.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
he's
let's
like,
put
yeah.
more pressure behind it.
And
yeah.
he's like, yeah, my team loves that kind of pressure, and
Yeah.
it's refreshing
yeah.
to have that kind of pressure where it's not, you know what? The right business thing to do might not be to build it 2 years faster, because time is money. And when you want more time, you got to pay money. And, both of them were, they were human, but they were still very professional. These guys obviously didn't reach VP level in a company like Intel without learning to talk around. Learning to speak a little bit. But the good news is that, I'm familiar enough with that manner of communication that I can see it and I can go, okay, so what you're saying is there's this willingness to invest in technology for the sake of building cool stuff and doing it now.
Which is how you get really intense fans.
Well, yeah.
And those really intense fans is how you sell lots of stuff, because we've talked about this before. Lots of like friend groups or family units will have like the tech person, and everyone in that friend group or family unit will just do what that person says.
And not just do what that person says. You got to understand that at the enthusiast level, right? Even though Intel's market share in the broader desktop space might still be excellent because they can just produce more than AMD, in the enthusiast space,
It's
we've
rough.
seen reports coming out of retailers in Europe that have basically said, yeah, like Intel and AMD, like neck and neck, or even that AMD is out ahead. And it's more than just what those enthusiasts say. I mean, it's what those enthusiasts have experience with. It's trust, right?
Yeah.
Like if you have AMD in your system and you're like, yeah, the 10850K or whatever is a really good deal right now. Because, Intel clearly has a fire lit under their butt to move these things and stay competitive. I'm going to go, well, look, I'm not that budget constrained. I don't mind spending an extra $30, which in the grand scheme of buying a new gaming machine is not that much money. What do you run? That's how that conversation goes. That's what they want to know. They don't want to know what's a good bang for the buck that I calculate on a spreadsheet. They want to know, what are you running?
And like the biggest problem, I think, when Ryzen's were starting to kind of hit the scene at the beginning, was a lot of people that have used Intel for
many years,
potentially their whole lives, were worried about like, am I now going to have problems? Because CPUs are generally not something that you really have a problem with, right? So you went like, I'm taking this piece of my system that has been rock solid for years, and I'm replacing it with some different brand. Is this going to be an issue? And I think that was the biggest problem with Ryzen adoption for a long time, was they needed to show everyone like, no, we're cool. This is fine.
Well, Gen 1 was also kind of a piece of poo
Gen
for a
1
while.
was also not amazing, but they figured it out. And so, like brand loyalty, especially with something that doesn't have a lot of problems, is tough to overtake. Like if there's something in your life that you have a version of it and it works completely fine, and a very reasonable amount of time in the future you need another version, you're very likely to just go back
buy
to
the new one.
I
like i7. I'll have the latest i7, please.
Done.
Yep.
Yeah, and that's true across like a huge range of things. It's not just computer components.